Hello everyone, my name's Tiffany. I'm the Tipsy artist. Today we are painting this very beautiful and bright bison and just lovely. This is the big one. This is what we do in our really big live classes that we do in studio when we travel around to big event centers and things like that. But I wanted to give you a visual of this before we get started. And then I have a version that is done in a 9x12 that we do with our online classes. So I'm going to switch camera views, but I did want to give you a visual on this first. And then I'm going to place this somewhere over here. I think I'm going to be able to, well, I've got a visual nearby where I can see. Ball. I think I've got it. All right. Okay, so I will also be using a traceable today for y'all. So this class is designed for beginners. And I worked a little bit ahead here. So you can see I've got my transfer paper down. I've got the traceable. This comes with the kit. All this does the canvas, transfer paper, traceable. And we're going to be doing all this tracing. I do have a separate video just for that, so you don't have to sit there and watch me trace out every line. We're just going to get started with the really fun painting part. All right, so I'm going to put this back down. We're going to switch camera views here, but I just want to say hello. And also, if you have not subscribed yet, we would love it if y'all could help us out by hitting the subscribe button. You're helping to support a small family business. We really appreciate y'all. And here we go. Okay. All righty. Okay, so I have all my supplies laid out. And let's go ahead and talk a little bit about this. And again, we have another video that's designed just for this. And I have worked ahead, but this all comes with your painting kit. So you'll have a cute little bag that comes like this. And then your paint, plates, you have a little apron. The only thing you're going to have to go and get is water, but everything else comes in the kit. So what I do is I tape up here at the very top. I always leave the sides free and clear so that I can check my work as I go to make sure I get all the line work in, because it's very difficult, if not entirely almost impossible to get this lined up exactly if you happen to miss some spots. So you want to check all your work and make sure that you got every line done before you remove this. So I went ahead and traced mine out early. And then I also include a permanent marker in the kit as well. Some of this I do want a hard line around. It's very helpful for beginners. So I hard line the eyes, the nostrils, and then the main big shape here and the important features here, like the horns and the ear. That way those don't get lost with the paint. So those will stay firmly in place. And then, of course, as I paint, I'll teach you how to kind of obscure that, but it actually works as a nice shadow underneath. It's all good. And then, of course, this is actually what that transfer paper looks like when that graphite transfers here. It just looks like a pencil line. So it's a really nice look to begin with. All right, so I have double checked and I'm all set up. I'm going to go ahead and remove this. And then I can just chunk it and trash when I'm done. Okay. All right. Yippee. All right, so let's talk about our little brushes here to begin with. We have a lovely family of brushes. This is my mama's. And then this is my little buddy, little spare flat top there. And then we have our little bit brush here. All right, and we've got our little napkins. This is our got a visual for y'all and a couple of plates. I've got a little bit of a head start here with my paint out. I went ahead and put out some titanium white and some Mars black. But all of your paint will be brand new. It will come in these awesome little tubes. So I'm going to go ahead and get this out. Okay. So it's nice and secure in here. Very secure. Hold on, let me do a little look there. What is that? Okay, good job, me and y'all. All right. Okay, so since I've got some white and some black out, but I'm going to show you as I do each one of these tubes, you'll also notice that they also have a silver foil liner here. Let me get my there. And so you will have to lift off each one of these to allow that paint to freely flow out of that. And you always want to recap when you're done. That way it'll keep your paint nice and fresh. So we're good to go on that. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started with our beautiful sky here. So I'm going to go ahead and get some primary cyan blue. And I'm going to do a little pea-sized amount there. All right, and let's say I want a little hint of some, almost like a turquoise effect. So this is some Viridian, it's really pretty. I'm going to go ahead and do a little tiny pea-sized amount of the Viridian. I'm going to be working on the sky first. All right, so when you have your new brushes, sometimes they are a little bit stiff from the wash. So I always, mine are a little bit used here, but you want to go ahead and do a little push into the water, a little twirl into the water, and then we're going to go ahead and dry off. And then that way your brush will be just a little bit moist and flexible. So all good to go. All right, I'm going to go ahead and pick up a little dollop of the white here. Nice big dollop. And then I'm going to do a little corner touch into that primary cyan blue. We're going to work that in. It makes a really pretty light blue. Let's do another little touch there. And then let's go and do another little touch of our Viridian. And so that gives it that beautiful turquoise look. And if it gets too green, then you just push back in a little bit more of the blue, and that'll push it back to more of a blue turquoise. That's looking really pretty. You can add a little bit of water, helps extend that paint, helps it flow nice and freely on the canvas. And I'm just going to kind of crisscross back and forth here on the canvas, a little bit more water. That'll help that paint flow into the pores of the canvas there. And again, just crisscross back and forth, making some nice horizontal strokes. Please reference it. Trees here in the background. I'm going to carefully cut in around your hairs. So as we're working in more freely in the background, I'm turning that brush handle more over to the side, parallel to the canvas. That's allowing the full flat side of the brush to face the canvas. When you have to do your cutting work, then you want to hold the brush more like you would hold a pencil. That's allowing that thin line edge side of the brush to do more of that cutting work on here. I'm doing a little bit of cutting work over the tip top parts of the hair. And then I can kind of feather that back out by turning the handle over to the side. Again, more flat side of the brush facing the canvas. Now I'm going back to that cut in, so I'm turning it and holding it more like a pencil. That's giving me that thin line edge side. It gives me a little bit more precision and control as I do the cutting in. And so that we don't have a line in our paint with texture or a little bit of color, then we always we come back in to that cut in line and we turn that brush over to the side and we feather out that stroke and crisscross it back and forth. So a little bit more water. You can add a little bit more blue in here as well. Help give it a bit more intensity. Softly blend that back in. Crisscross that back and forth. And there's still some cloud cover happening back here. I'm gonna wait, I'm gonna be putting that in here in a little bit. Right now, we're just working on getting that sky in here. We're going to carry that out back and forth. Lots of repetition, get a nice soft blended look. Got a little bit more intensity here. Now work that into this area. And then crisscross that back and forth. A nice soft blend back into that sky. And that's repetition, back and forth into that space. Feather it out by holding it more over to the side. That side of the brush faces that canvas. Work that back and forth. All right, we're going to be bringing in a little bit more white now, so I'm going to rinse out and dry off a little bit here. I've got plenty of white out. I've had a little tiny touches of some primary magenta in that cloud cover, so I'm going to go ahead and prep for that. Got my primary magenta right here. And we'll do a little tiny pea size amount there. Let's just have little touches of that. All right, let's grab a little bit of this white. And then we're going to go ahead and move this in to the corner. Crisscross back and forth. Again, keep crisscrossing back and forth. Have a little bit of that cloud cover here. And light little touches here at the end of the cloud. And just do a little bit of a pounce, 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 and just kind of lightly drag the brush out here. I'll get a nice thick layer of white paint. Kind of dot it down here. Get that texture work for you. And I can just do a tap, tap, tap. And very light, gentle hand on this because you want a lot of that paint to just really rest right on the surface area. I'm just gonna lightly kind of touch and let that paint rest there. And that'll leave some of that really nice, thick, opaque coverage. And the texture's nice, and do light little drags with it. And let's do a little tiny touch of that primary magenta. A tiny touch. Get rid of that pink in there. And then out, it's looking good. All right, we're gonna do the same thing on the other side. So a nice big touch of that white. I push that in. I still have a little bit of that primary magenta in there. So that's actually working well for me. Keep working that in here, light touches. Again, gentle hand, nice side of the brush facing the canvas. Lightly kind of drag the side of the brush across here. We're going to do a little circular push out for that cloud. A circular push. There's the edge of it. And just lightly pull the flat side of that brush across. Almost kind of act like you're barely touching the canvas. And then again, it's kind of like little circular touches, like half circles. And then just kind of like, now I'm going to pull more and then just a soft curve horizontal across. I'll just continue kind of filling that in and crisscross that back and forth. Again, nice, light, gentle hand. A lot of that just pure white here to begin with. Crisscross back and forth. There's a lot of that white paint, again, just to rest right over the surface area. It's nice and thick and textural. A little bit of that primary magenta in there. Crisscross that back and forth. Softly blend that in. A little bit more there. Again, just like crisscross strokes, and I'm just going to softly blend in that primary magenta in there for that pink hue on the side. Looking quite lovely. Now I'm going to go ahead and rinse out here. And dry off. And then we're going to go ahead and get some of that golden ground here too. So we're going to be using more room. We're going to be using some of this primary yellow. Nice little pea size amount there. Big pea. And then cadmium yellow. Pea size amount there as well. And there's a little bit of a brown hue to this too. So we're going to mix up a little bit of brown. And how we do that is brown is made by mixing up cadmium orange and black. I'm going to mix up that brown first. I'm going to use my little buddy brush. We're going to do a little touch of that black. On Mars black here. You get a visual on that. All right, so this is Mars black mixed up with cadmium orange, and you can see it's taking it to a brown, light brown. So now I'll have some of that to play with, which is wonderful. You can even add a little bit of white to it, and then that gives you a lighter brown too. All right. I'll go ahead and rinse out. We are using acrylic paints today, so they do sit up and dry pretty quickly. So you always want to make sure and clean your brushes very quickly. And cleaning, I'm doing a rinse here. I'm doing firm pressure and spinning it round and round and round. That helps release the paint here in the water bucket. All right. And then I'm going to grab a little dollop of the white and my primary yellow. Nice golden color. A little bit of that cadmium yellow, and you can even add a little touch of that brown too. That's nice and creamy and buttery. Put in a little bit of water to help make that paint a bit more fluid and help that work across our canvas here. So I'll push this the other way. And go ahead and do a horizontal stroke here across. Just do a little bit of line work there with the edge side. Covers right over that line. Now remember, when we do cutting work, we're going to turn the handle of the brush to that thin line edge side. So it'll help us cutting. And then when we want to get a thicker, broader stroke, then we're going to turn that handle back over to the side, parallel to the canvas. A little bit of cutting work here. Getting around those little leaves. And then we're going to just spread this out. Horizontal strokes. No, it's horizontal strokes there. You can pull in a little bit more of that cadmium yellow. There's some thicker sections of that kind of run through that horizontal section of the paint. Put this in underneath here. A little bit of cutting work here around the flower. And we don't want to forget this little tiny section in between the legs here too. I'm going to go ahead and use my little buddy brush for that. Quick firm press into that yellow and use the line edge to do that cutting work in there. Squeegee out that excess paint that's been placing into the water for a second. Now I'm going to grab a little bit more of that cadmium yellow and do some smooth strokes across here. And softly feather that texture out. Light, gentle hand. And go ahead and get a little bit more of my primary yellow. Got a big dollop, about a nickel-sized dollop there. We're going to work that in. A bit more white, a touch of that. And let's go ahead and work this in on this side. And cut in around this little leaf in here. Mm, a little line here. And a little nose. Grab a little more of that cadmium. And let's go back to that horizontal stroke, just back and forth. And I'm working in those darker strokes of that cadmium yellow really warms up the ground. And we cut in here. Let's grab a little bit more of that brown for our cutting. In here and in here. And touch of this. I'm going to work a little bit more of this brown shade in here with this. Laying that brush again, more over to the side to get better coverage. And we're going to feather in a little bit more of that brown shade, especially right over the top of the sunflower so that we can have contrast between the ground and the sunflower. So that sunflower yellow will really pop next to the ground here. And lightly kind of drag this brush across on the side. And so now we're going to have that nice contrast in here. A little bit more here. And here. And here. And it touches it now. And then the paint's still wet here, so we're going to get a nice soft fade between those two. Just kind of lightly, softly brush back and forth and feather that out. So we have a nice transition with that darker shadow of brown coming in there. And then here in a minute, we'll pick up a little bit more of the lighter yellow and kind of work that back into that thing. So in with a little bit more of the lighter yellow here. And work this in from the top of this brown section, just underneath the bison. And kind of crisscross that stroke back and forth. While the paint's still wet, you're getting a nice soft transition between those two colors. Very pretty. Let's grab a bit more of that cadmium. A little bit more of that brown. And softly work that in here on the side. Nice horizontal strokes back and forth. Pull right in from the side there, but more of that brown that I touched in. And we're going to do that on the side here too. While the paint's still wet, slight strokes of that little light brown that we mixed up. And that way drag that in. Nice. Very pretty. Let's go ahead and rinse out. And brown. A little bit here, ready to go. And then little buddy. Let's go ahead and get him out. rinsed out, let's dry off. All right, so let's go ahead and start to work on some of that beautiful color up here at the top. So I'm going to go back to my mama brush and some of that lovely warm yellow that we were using on the ground. It's also going to go in at the top of our bison here. And add a little bit more of some pure orange as well. This one have a little bit of the cadmium red nearby. A touch of that. And then I've got my primer magenta. Let's go ahead and pull that over here to this plate. Paints out, dry off. Keep those brushes clean. All right, we're going to go back to Mama, and we're going to pick up a little bit more of that bright primary yellow, a little bit of that cadmium yellow, and a little touch of that orange. And we'll be working this in on the top of the bison here. Nice little horizontal strokes. And when they kind of taper off to the end of the fur, you just kind of lift off with a light hand. You can add a little bit of white in here as well to help make that paint a bit more opaque and give it much better coverage over the top. And you can also just kind of very gently kind of hold the brush over to the side. Like that gently across here. We're going to fill in big bold strokes in here. Make a little bit more of that orange. Push a bit more of that orange in here. We're going to bring that in those sections in here. That yellow. And light, gentle hand, let that paint just very gently rest right over the surface. And this in just near about here. It's nice light sweeps of paint on the side of the brush. With a little bit of a soft curve, almost like you're making like a little parentheses. And then let's go ahead and pick up a little bit of that cadmium yellow, little touches of that. And we're going to do little tiny pushes of that too. While the paint's still wet, we get a nice soft blend. And even a little bit of that primary magenta in there is really pretty. Out about the ear, careful in there, little tiny touches. And holding it a little bit more over to the side. So the brush will again allow a lot more of that paint to just gently rest right over the top. And little short strokes of that primary magenta. And real light touch allows a lot more of that paint to just gently rest on the surface area. And that cadmium red in there. Again, just little half circle pushes. Vary your stroke a little bit. Sometimes do a curve this way, sometimes do it this way. And again, keep the hand light. light. You want to act like you're just barely touching the canvas. Barely touch that canvas. I'm gonna have to reload here. There's more of that cadmium red, nice nickel-sized olive of that. And let's do another nice nickel-sized off of the primary magenta. I mean, I'm seeing some purple in here too, so. At some point though, when I do shift over to more of the purple, I will want to rinse out the yellow because the yellow and the purple don't play so well together. It's not as pretty. So I want to make sure that my brush just has more of the red and the purple, and that those colors do play very well together. But I'm going to come in, and red plays very well with yellow. So you can still continue to work those in back and forth. But I'm going to get in a little bit more of this beautiful cadmium red to begin with. And again, this should be very playful. This is definitely not a paint by numbers thing where you're having to be super exact. You just want to be very playful with it. Some touches of color here. Lightly push, and I'm going to pull up this time and go lift off with a light hand for that hair. Put more of that lighter orange. Working some of that in here. Pull that cadmium red, and push that in. I'm going to squeegee out that paint so we can still maybe use a little bit of that later. I'm going to go ahead and rinse out here. And it was clear, and I'm going to go ahead and dry off. And then we've got our purple up here and then a little bit of white to it. Make it a little bit more of that real strong, vibrant violet color. And then I can work in a little bit of that over the top of that cadmium, just light touches. But again, we want that to play with the cadmium red. So it can get a little bit muddy if it starts working into that yellow. Little touches. Again, it won't look the same every time. Every time I do this paint, it always changes a little bit. Maybe a little bit of purple light on that corn. Maybe get some little tiny touches And then let's go ahead, we're gonna start working in a little bit of that primary cyan blue. We still have that over here on the other plate, so let's go ahead and touch into that. And put that next to that. And then a little bit of the white with the primary cyan blue too is also really pretty. And if a little bit of that purple gets in there, it's really lovely. It kind of creates this beautiful, like a periwinkle effect. And I got a little bit of that orange in there. I want to be careful to not keep dragging it through because it's making it a bit muddy and I still want that vibrant blue. So let me go ahead and grab a little bit more of my primary cyan blue here. Another big dollop over there. Yes. And a little bit of that white with it. Makes it pop. And then we'll get this in to the bottom here. So I turn my handle more over to, again, that little thin line edge to work into little tiny areas, or you can also use one of your little kiddo brushes as well to get into those tiny areas. And then I'm just going to go back to that light feathering stroke, work more with the side of the brush. And you can start to work in a little bit of the blue and the primary magenta together. It's also a really pretty color. And I'm going to grab a little bit of black as well to edge out that leg because we don't want to lose that shape. We're going to make this leg a little bit darker here. And again, let's show the use of using a little bit here too. So we're going to do a little twirl into the black and the blue, a little twirl, a little bit of water too. That helps the paint become more fluid. And you can also kind of have that nice little firm point at the end. And then we're going to go ahead and use this to do that edge work around that little tiny area in there. I can also come back in with a little bit more of that solid blue. And work that into that little section. And a little bit more of that primary magenta as well. That brings in a little touch of almost like a crimson feel as that primary magenta mixes with the black and the blue. And again, little soft touches. And I definitely want this to be a little bit lighter in here so that you see where that leg begins and ends. You know, a little bit of blue to that. With this leg coming in from behind, we don't want to lose that shape. And then a little bit of white. You can do little touches here. A little bit soft curve, almost kind of feels like a little bit like parentheses back and forth there. And a little bit here. Maybe a few more big chunky sections of that blue and the black. And then I'm going to be switching back over to my little bit brush here. Little tiny strokes out, lift off with a light hand. Fill that in. Real soft strokes. And we definitely kind of a little bit more of that black to help edge out this face shape in here so that doesn't get lost. A bit more of that black. And there's a little touch of that black in here too. Okay, that in there. And get me that black in here. So you can do little tiny touches of that black in here. And in here. Soft curved strokes. Go ahead and leave them in the water for just a second. And I take a little bit brush and we're going to go ahead and do a little bit of that black and then the blue. Give it a twirl. Add a little bit of water too to help make it more fluid. A little twirl there. And let's go ahead and edge out this little tail. Just follow it, soft curve. And again, that water in the brush with that little twirl, that's going to help make that paint more fluid and help it flow into that tinier spot there. And right over there. We're going to grab a little bit of white too. And while that paint's still wet, it's going to have a nice soft blend in there. Push that around. And then all the way down and just kind of lift off with a light hand. And picking up a little bit more of that primary cyan blue. Taking that through the bottom corner here. Little tips there, and just light little pulls, lift off with a light hand. And then I'm going to grab a little bit of white with my blue. And we're going to do a little bit lighter in here so that there's some definition around this. That I'm calling it face here. It's kind of more like the beard, but I don't want to lose that distinctiveness of the shape. It really characterizes the bison here. So I'm going to do little soft curls of that. A little bit more of that primary magenta and like that, and then soft curves in there. And some of that cadmium red. Start to look that in. Push into a bit more of that cadmium red. And if there's a favorite color that you have more than others, you could certainly work in a bit more of that. And I'm going to bring in a lighter red underneath the eye so that the eye does pop and still stand out. So little tiny strokes for that fur just underneath. And there's a little bit of that blue and that primary magenta. And as it works in with the cadmium red, it does kind of pull a little bit to that crimson look. It kind of, there's a little bit of darkness in there too that happens when you start to pick up some of those different colors. You can use that as some of those shadows. Let's do a little bit of tap, tap, tap here for some texture on the side of the brush. It's very light. Tap, tap, tap. Let's get tap for the texture there. A bit more of that cadmium red, kind of tap that in over the top here. Try that orange, tap that in, tap, tap, tap. And then let's go back to the blue. And over the white. A little tiny, oops, let's get a nice curl. And then we'll just do a little soft curve there right over the top. Blue and then soft curve right over the top. Nice. Rinse out a little bit. And then let's go with just some light blue. So blue and white over here. And we're going to do a little line here on top of the nose. Just fill that in. Take that across. And then a little bit of that white. I'm just going to do a little highlight of white there. I'm going to go back into that darker blue. And you can pull in a little bit of that black with it too, which makes a nice little charcoal. I'm going to go ahead and work this into the center, but we don't want it to get too dark because we don't want to lose that nostril shape that is going to be black. So we're going to come in around this, just a darker blue that has a bit of a gray quality to it. And then underneath, this is going to have a little bit of that darker charcoal. Just underneath it. Let's go ahead and rain from it. Take a little bit of that, just pure white here. We're going to do a little line of the white on the horn, and then that along this top line. And now that paint's still wet, and we're going to come in with a little bit of that blue and the white mixed together. And we're going to fill in on this side of the horn and run that with a soft curve. Soft curve there. That's it. And then on this other side, let's rinse out because we're going to do just a little bit more of that white, but there's just a teeny touch of that blue with it too, but it's mostly white. And so I'm using my little bit brush and we're just going to do push that into the tip and then pull back towards the bottom. A little tiny touch of that bluish charcoal, that slate. And we're just going to do a little tiny pull that on the edge there. And that's right that. And then now we've got just a little warm touch of that yellow and the white. And we're going to do a little right into the hair on the top of the ear. Rinse out. And I'm going to take my little bit brush. I'm just going to do a nice little light glide of some cadmium red right up here at the top. Little touches. I'm also just going to kind of like play it flat here. And just on the side flat. And just like a little bit of texture with that primary magenta. Right, little presses. Let the brush do the texture for you. Let's rinse out. And then let's do a little spin into that black. Let's grab a little bit more water, a little twirl, nice fine point again. And we have a little eyelash for you to look at here too. So we'll just do a teeny tiny little pull. You can also, if you don't feel comfortable doing that with paint, you can also do that with your permanent marker at the very end of the class too. And I'm going to do a little push of line with that dark black there. And then I'm going to do little tiny hairs here with the black, and just little tiny pulls, and then lift off with a light hand. Spread a little bit more water. And a little twirl, and that will help make those little endings just a bit more fluid. And then you get those tiny little hairlines there. A little bit of water helps get that precision. And then I'm going to do a little tiny And we're using our little bit brush. And you can also pull in a few other colors on here too, like a little bit more of that feminine red and do those tiny fishes of that in there too. And the blue. Really pretty. Let's go ahead and rinse out here. Oops, I think a little bit more here on the tail too. Actually, that right in. All right, so a nice little twirl in that black and a little bit of blue. And then we're going to do little tiny pulls here. And the one right there, but we don't want to have too much darkness. Keep those legs separate. And a little bit of tap from here, a little bit dark color, a bit of shadows. Just a little tap inside the brush. More like having a red, having a bit dark, a bit of shadow. Tap, tap, tap. Cadmium red, tap, 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 tap. Some of that dark black in there too, so it's giving a bit more of that crimson. And tapping in for a bit of that shadow. I'm actually having red out here. All right, now we can start working on some of those really pretty little leaves and our sunflower here. So I'm going to go ahead and start working on. What are we going to do first? All right, let's do this pink flower over here. I'm going to grab a little bit of some white. I'm using my little buddy brush. Do our primary magenta. Look at the white, very pretty. I'm going to go ahead and work that into this petal. Just working a nice solid color over the top. So again, we hold it more like a pencil to get into the thin point, and then when we need better coverage, we're going to go and turn that handle more over to the side. Just getting that base coat down for that first coat here. Put it on the primer magenta and the white. Around. I'm holding it with like a pencil now, and then I can turn it over to the side of the brush. Right hand. Petal here. Turn it over to the side. Put nice coverage over the top. And rinse out. And then let's take our little bit brush here, and we're just going to do some little touches of the white. Just kind of lightly drag it over the top. Get some nice texture. And some texture here. Twirl. Yeah. And then a little light drag of that white. And we're going to touch into that finer magenta. Let's do like a light little drag over the top. Pretty, pretty, pretty. I love it. Okay, so let's go ahead and get our let's go work on our little leaves next here. So we've got, let's get some green going. Lemon green. Put a dot up there. We'll just have fun. We have so many pretty shades here. We'll just use them all. We have our bright yellow green. All right, so if I grabbed a little bit more of the Viridian, bright yellow green, cadmium green, and we can also use a little bit of this primary cyan blue in here too. That also plays well because we'll bring in little touches of that turquoise in here. It's quite lovely. Okay, so I'm gonna do a little bit of mixing here. Got my blue, my Viridian, my cadmium green. See, that's gonna bring in some nice teals. Got a little bit of white in there. See, it's looking really awesome. And we're gonna do little touches of this first. Get some nice chunky color down. Got a little bit of bright yellow green too. And so that I don't lose the shape, the edge, then I'll grab a little bit of blue and kind of darken out, so I don't lose that shape. And here I'll come back in with a little bit of that blue. And then I don't lose that shape. And then a little bit dark here with the blue stitch. And again, a bit more of that lighter color here. Hold that brush a bit more over to the side. Nice coverage inside the shape. A little bit here too. Leave it here. Touch in the little corner. Turn the brush a bit more over to the side. So, and I'm just using a little mix of everything we've combined. So it's our blue, our Viridian, our green, and our bright yellow green. Kind of working that in here. A little white too to kind of lighten that up. Chunky little strips here to cover. All right, now I'm gonna go ahead and rinse this out. Boom. Come back with my little bit brush here. And we're going to work on some of these papers. And I've got a little bit of water. Pour it back into that paint. Put a little twirl. And let's go ahead and taper this out to a nice fine point. Lift off with the right hand. Pull it out there. Grab a little more of that meridian, little twirl. And we're just going to lay on a little bit more texture and some of those finer shapes around the edges, but the feel of the leaf can simplify. You're going to feel like you're doing like a parentheses around that shape, soft parentheses around that shape. And then when you pull it out to a point, then you can just pull out to a point and then lift off with a light hand. A soft curve, that parentheses, and pull out to a fine point there. And as I'm pushing down, I'm doing a little bit of a push in that soft curve. Add a little bit of white, that light bright green, a little bit of light to it. Soft curve there. Little pushes. Soft curve, and then pull out to a point there. We're showing some of that lighter green in the middle. Definitely that light. This is that bright yellow green. Do a little push of that in here. Blow it out to a nice fine point. You can also add little touches of that brown that you mixed up initially too. You want a bit more of those more earth tones. Seeing that pushed in with our green kind of makes a nice little sage. That's also really pretty. You can do little touches of that in here too. It's nice shadow at the base. So I'm kind of pushing and then lifting off with a light hand. A little push with that, a little bit of a soft curve. A little bit of shadow. Okay, now I'm going to use that same dark shadow now. We're going to go back in with that brown and maybe a little bit of that orange too. And we're going to start to define our little petals here on our sunflower. So we're going to line those out. And a little bit brush. This is that brown that we mixed up earlier. And if you need to mix up more, it is going to be your cadmium orange and your black. And you can add a little bit of white to that to lighten that to a lighter brown. But then I'm going to line out these little petals. Have a little bit of water in here too. Don't forget about your little twirl with your brush. That'll give you a nice fine point. It's a nice fine point on the tip of that petal there. There's another little petal coming from behind here. Petal. All right. And then I'm gonna definitely need more yellow. So let's go ahead and grab some more primary yellow. A dot of that, these size amount. And grab some more cadmium yellow. Also, I need to make sure I've got more orange nearby here, just in case. And I've still got some brown over here, so I'll dip into that too. So I'm going to mix my yellow, bright yellow, cadmium yellow. And we're going to work this into each little petal here. And that brown is still wet, and we love that because we'll get a nice soft blend in with that lighter yellow. So it's just giving a nice soft transition between the two. And if your brown already set up and dried and you're doing that, and you want that nice transition, just re-wet the brown. And then you'll have the same lovely transition between the two. It is nice. It makes it feel like it really belongs. You get that nice transition from that dark shadow at the edge of the petal to the middle. So they're softly blending nicely. It's kind of pulling into that color. And get this in here. And light hand and kind of pull up for those fine points at the end. So again, firm pressure for the thick parts, then you come up to the little point you want to lift off with a light hand. So we got some good coverage there. And then I'm going to leave that same color. I'm going to go back into that little bit of brown and my water. And we're going to go ahead and work back around just a little tiny balls, little tiny touches. And then put more of that orange too. There it is. There's an orange. A bit more of that. So I've got a lot of color happening here. A little bit of brown, a little bit of the orange, still a little bit of yellow residual on there. And I'm just going to do tiny little holes, little tiny brush strokes all the way around that circle. Put a little bit of texture. Little short strokes. Little short strokes there. And then we're going to pull out into those little lines that kind of in between each petal. And again, still using a really light hand. And tiny feather strokes that come up in between each petal there. And this is that brown. There's a little bit of primer and magenta happening on the brush too. And kind of pulling that up through the petals. Define those. And if you find that you get a little bit dark and you obscure your petals too much with the brown and the primer magenta, you can always come back in and rework with a little bit more of the yellow right on top too. It's real easy to do that. It's not going to rinse out here. Grab a little bit more like yellow, a nice layer on top of the flat part of the brush, and you can just lay that in just right over the top too. And lighten right back up. And that just gives another fun texture. It's very pretty to do that. Pulling a bit more of that. Again, right primary yellow, cadmium yellow, and we're gonna go ahead and pour in another layer of texture right over the top. Just gonna barely touch the canvas. Put a nice chunky layer of that bright right over the top. Okay, ready. And then we're going to start to darken this middle section here too. So we've got our orange and we need a little touch of the black again. And we're going to darken it a bit more brown. And then we're going to get a little bit more black into the center. And do a soft half circle to either side. And then around the edge of the circle, I'm going to do a little like tap, 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 tap. And it's going to add some nice little bit of texture around that circle. Tap, tap, tap. And we're tapping in that brown. And we worked in black here in the center. And then we're just tapping in that brown around the edge. So with a little bit, just tap, tap, tap. Tap, tap, tap around that circle. And I'm going to tap, tap, tap out the texture over the top of this something too. So it's nice and textural. Do one more little touch of black and kind of do a little sweep of texture of black right here. Tap in a little texture of that black again too. Almost like a little half circle. Half of a loop of black texture. It's also very pretty. Perfect. Taking another look around here. I think we are done with our cooking. All right. Yeah, let's call that done. Looks really good. All right, so you can continue to play if you would like. But again, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been so much fun. This is such a fun painting to do, very textural and fun. And oh, you know what? One more thing. It's kind of this is an optional thing that you can do. But if you want to use the palette knife with this is optional. But let's do a little bit of palette knife work here. So this will be one of those last layers of texture. So I'm going to do a little bit more here with, let's grab some more of my cadmium yellow. And let's grab some more orange. We've got some red on there. All right, so you take your palette knife. We're going to grab a bit more of that. This is our cadmium yellow. And you can just very gently kind of lightly scrape that across. You just lightly drag it across the top there. You can do little pulls. Let's show a little pull with that orange. So I'm going to do a little pull here. A pull. Picked up some of that wet. Right. I'm just going to get these brushes out of here. So it creates a really nice texture. So do a little pull and drag. Let's grab a little bit more of this yellow. I do a few little pushes on one flat side. And then I'm just going to lightly kind of touch and drag across the top. Just do a little tiny short. And I will say it could be a little bit easier if you want to let it set up and dry. I have to work within a time frame here, but of course you do not. So you could let yours set up and dry. And you can always come back in and then work in some of those vibrant colors with total confidence and control that you're not going to pick up some of those other colors that you don't want to pick up. I'm going to do a little touch of this yellow. I'm going to get a touch of that. And the palette knife creates a really beautiful texture. A little bit of red here. And the full for that texture, you know, so it's fun. You can kind of play with it a little bit. Just a little purple in there. Did you like it? Yeah, I like that. It's pretty. Okay. And you are welcome to do that too, like all over the surface area. You can do it, like in the ground here, little drags and horizontal. You can also do your sky with some of that white or the blue. So do a little bit of that light blue. And you could do patches and drags across your sky like that, a little bit more of that texture. And of course, acrylic paint, if you don't like it, then you can always come back over it and paint over it too. Darken this out just a wee bit. There's some William. Little drags of texture there. It's fun, you can just kind of play with it a little bit. Yeah, this is very optional, so if you like the look of it, you're more than welcome to try some of that. Okay, now I think we're done, except for signing. All right, so I do recommend, especially for beginners, to go ahead and sign with your permanent marker. However, you do have to make sure that it is dry, and mine's not dry, because if it's not dry, it'll just ruin your permanent marker, so you don't want to do that. So let it set up and dry, and you can sign right here, and this gives you a lot more control to be able to do that. And that will be your last step. All right, so we just want to thank you again so very much for joining us today. It was so much fun. And if you have any questions, please, you can email me or comment below and I'll get back with you. And of course, the website is tipsyartist.com. That's in all the description. And again, we just thank you all so very much and have a beautiful rest of the day. Until next time, much love to y'all. Toodles.